And welcome back. Now, previously we had made this character here and we had set him up as just kind of a standing pose here. But we haven't, of course, set up the other frames for example, his running animation, his idle, or his jump animation. So let's first tackle that running animation. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go ahead to my sprite layer here. And I'm just going to go ahead and duplicate that layer. And I'm just going to go ahead and call this running layer. And let's go ahead and mask our previous sprite layer here in our outline because we don't need those open right now. We're just going to focus strictly on this running layer. And to get started here, I'm just going to grab my marquee selection tool. And I'm just going to go ahead and grab his leg here. And using my move tool, I'm actually just going to first start by just shifting that over 1 pixel. And I'm going to repeat that process again, but now I'm going to do it for the other leg. And I'm going to shift that to the right 1 pixel. Oh. Got a program error here. It's because my layer became deselected, so that can happen sometimes. Alright, so Control D. And now that we have those spread apart, you can start seeing the formation of how we're going to actually make these legs have the illusion of movement. Now, I could from here go ahead and try to say several different ways of approaching this. I could try to erase the legs and redraw them myself, or I can use some of the tools within Photoshop to actually help make my life a little bit easier. Now, ultimately, we know, I'm just going to grab this pencil tool real quick here. We know that these legs, when I'm working with them, should be coming out, let's just say, at an angle that is coming out to here, which means I want to transform that so that when these legs are out there like this. Now, we could, of course, create a running outline. That would be another way that you can do this. But I'm just going to go ahead and use my marquee selection tool again. And because we know that this here is effectively a joint, because this is where our knee is, I'm just going to take that piece there, and I'm going to just use my transformation options with free transform. I'm just going to go ahead and rotate that. Now, of course, as I rotate that, you can notice sometimes we end up with some weird shape behaviors here, but that's okay for this right now. I'm just going to go ahead and accept that, and we're going to go ahead and slide that into place here, and just line that up so it looks like this, and Control D. And let's do the same thing here. All right, we can just actually take this shape if we want, and we can try to mimicry this by just bringing it over, or again, Control T to shift that, and I'm going to rotate this one up until I get kind of a similar shape to what we had before. Now you notice we may not get that desired shape that we had, which in this case it might be easier simply to take this selection that we have here, delete it off, and grab this selection, hold down our Alt key with the Move tool, and bring that on over. And then we can take this piece here, and we can just simply use our rotate options to bring that around to where we want to go. And you might have to play around with the one that you want the most. This looks pretty close here, but of course you notice it's not exactly where we want it, so I might have to bring that down just a little bit. That looks pretty good there. And again, now we have our legs here, so we can have those two options. Now we do have an issue of some floating pixels here, so all I'm going to do is grab my eyedropper tool. I'm going to actually grab the dark shade here, and with my running layer selected, let's go ahead and just fill these zones in. And there we go. Now we don't have the legs just simply floating out here for anyone to see. And now I'm going to use the light color and repeat that process, filling in any zones I feel are necessary to kind of help give that illusion of the legs in motion. And if I say, hey, this looks like too much pixels, I can always switch to my eraser tool and just kind of clean those up a little bit, just that way it looks a little bit nicer there. All right, that looks pretty good, pretty solid representation there. I do want to maybe clean up also at my shorts area, so switching back to my eyedropper tool, let's just add a pixel here each on the inside, and using my eraser tool, I'm actually going to clean up section off. Again, back to my brush tool, just to kind of help clean that up a little bit, so that way it doesn't look quite so janky. All right, perfect. That's looking really good. And of course, you can come in here and adjust their shading as you need to. But I'm pretty happy with what we have here right now. So again, this is simply just the legs here. All right. Now, of course, you might look at this and say, this doesn't look quite right. Again, you are more than welcome to come in here and adjust these. Like I might still say, I want to put a little bit more emphasis on this leg, and I can switch to my eraser tool then and take off some of these other pieces. But you can switch these around however you need to in order to really help bring this presentation home with this part of the character. All right, but that takes care of the legs. Now let's focus on the upper body. Now again, like before when we did our legs, there are several options that we can do here. We could, of course, erase this arm and redraw it. Or the other thing is we can again use our selection tools here. Select this arm. I don't want to take the whole arm there because again I want to still have the shoulder in place. And using Control T, we're going to rotate this arm so that way it's swinging inward. And you notice if we swing too much, we start getting some weird shapes here. But again, we can make adjustments to this till we find the arm that looks pretty close to what we want. So I'm going to go ahead and hit that check mark. That looks pretty good. Because again, he's running in. So that arm's going to be swinging inward across his chest. So deselect that. And then I can grab my eyedropper tool, grab that brown, and I can adjust this so that way it might look a little bit more natural. And clean this up to whatever shape that I really want to be. Now this of course is where his fist is going to be, so I probably actually want to make sure that this area more than anything is standing out a little bit. So I actually might say, I want to have, another pixel maybe here to really help drive that in. And then I'm going to actually switch to the gray that I had here to kind of actually take some of those pixels back out to really help show that this is his arm and this is where it's pivoting through. All right. That looks pretty good. Now, of course, that takes care of this arm, but we do also want to move his other arm. And to do that, again, we're going to use our selection tool here. And what we're going to do is actually, we're not going to take this arm and swing it per se like we did the last one, but we do want to move it. So once I've done my selection, I'm going to switch to my move tool actually. And I'm going to first shift it up 1 pixel. All right, and that's because when he's holding this torch, this arm is probably going to be holding steady because he doesn't want to burn himself with his torch. So that handles the arm pretty well. So I can deselect it. However, our fire is going to be different in this animation. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to switch to first my eraser tool and take care of this small piece right here and concentrate on focusing on this piece of the animation. Now, there are several different ways that you can build your flame, so there's not necessarily one right way. Well, what I'm going to do is, again, I'm going to use my eyedropper tool here. And I'm going to start first with the light tone, and I'm simply just going to bring that tone across. Do the same thing, repeat the process, use my eyedropper tool, use that next color up, and bring it across. Then use the bright orange color I had, bring that across. And this darker tone here, we might change how that looks too. So I might, for example, grab this color. I might even say, I want a different color for this. I'm actually going to bring that over into a little more saturated values here. Because again, we're showing movement, so this is perfectly okay. And I'm going to go ahead and add now, maybe instead of the fire being right here, I might put it up here. There we go. And I might grab it again, one of these other tones, and put that here. Let's see, right there we go. Again, just because we're showing movement. Now, one thing that you can do if you really want to show movement is you can have your character change in their height position. So if we look at this compared to our original character, he's in the same height. However, if he is in mid jump, so to speak, or mid animation, we could take this with our rectangular selection tool and shift him up 1 pixel using our move tool, because what that will do is effectively as he runs, it's going to make him move up and down. Now you don't have to do that. You could keep him in the same layer here. And so I'm actually just going to move him back down 1, deselect. But again, that's just one more way you can add a little bit more depth to your animation. Now, going back to our running animation, you'll notice that with this, if I bounce between the two of these here, one of the things that you'll notice is that we don't quite have an animation set up where maybe one foot is on the ground, but the other one hasn't quite taken off yet. And so what we're going to do is we're going to take this running layer here, and we're just going to go ahead and duplicate that. And we're going to call this running layer 2. And what I'm going to do for that one is I'm actually going to kind of go back to think about how did I have my original sprite here. So I'm just going to hide this back for a second. And I actually probably want to actually use this here as running layer 2. So this is another option that you can do. So I'm actually going to duplicate this. Call this running layer 2. And I'm actually going to delete this other one off here, because this one will probably actually make a better animation too than the other one. So I'm going to hide that. And I'm going to effectively this time take my selection tool. And just like we had done before with our legs, we're actually this time going to take these whole things and now using my move tool, shift this one leg in, just 1 pixel. And I'm going to shift the other leg in. So let's use our move tool. Go ahead and shift that one in. And we're actually going to shift that one over 2 pixels here. Because what we want to do is have this leg kind of effectively disappear behind the first one. And if I were to back this up and move this leg over maybe 1 more. Oh, make sure you have your layer selected. There we go. And let's deselect that. And we can use our selection tool. We're actually just going to delete this lower half of the leg. Make sure our layer is selected, because sometimes that comes deselected. Grab this upper half here. And again, using our move tool, we're going to just go ahead and shift that over. And what we're going to do to help so that this is going through, well, we're going to deselect and use a little pencil work here. So I'm going to first start by getting this dark blue color that I had. And I'm actually going to tone it down even darker. And what I'm going to use, I'm going to use this to just paint a line through here that shows where this blue shorts are coming across. And then I'm going to go back to my original blue color just to kind of help paint in some of these missing areas. Next, let's do the same thing, but now for our browns, because we do know we have this leg coming across here. And we can grab our lighter tones to help bring that leg over. Now again, we do know we have a leg coming through here. So what we want to do is grab that brown that we have and actually bring that down in tone again, so we can paint through here where that other leg is passing by. Then what we're going to do is we're actually going to erase the bottom pixel of our shoe here and add another pixel, but with the lighter red, because we're showing the shoe moving. And then we're going to grab our arm, just like we did before. And we're using our transformation tool, and we're going to swing that in, but we don't want to swing it in too far. Now, we only want that to be partially over, so that looks good. And I'm just going to bring that on over just a little bit. And we can take these colors that we have here. I'm actually just going to erase those, switch back over to my brush tool. And what I'm going to do now is paint those in here and extend the hand just a little bit here. All right. And then, of course, we can adjust our arm with the torch. Now, this one, remember last time we had moved that so it was 1 pixel up. So this time, let's take it so it goes 1 pixel down. All right. And we can manipulate that torch again, however you want to manipulate that flame. This time, I think I'm actually going to have this one use our pictures here. Let's go ahead and erase this top of this flame. I'm going to eyedrop this. Just kind of bring this across. So it looks like it's kind of blowing. You take out some of these other tones here. All right. And so now, of course, we have a second one between these two animations now. We have set up running layer 1 and running layer 2. All right, and what I did is just to test this out, I really quickly went and made a quick frame animation with just these two running layers here. And so layer 1, of course, is that layer 2. Layer 2 is this one. Of course, you can switch around however you want. But if I play that really quickly, you can, of course, see the illusion of movement that we have now created for this sprite. Now, of course, we can, of course, do other things here, but this is, of course, a real quick, easy running animation. And when we come back next time, we'll go ahead and start working on building up the next one.